Welcome to Live from my office. And of course, you can see this on YouTube. Subscribe there and listen to it on Spotify and Apple, wherever you get your podcast. I can't help but noticing, if you're watching on YouTube, well, there's two things. One, I had a knee replacement 9 weeks ago, and sleep can be a challenge. So the bags under my eyes have gotten even bigger. And if that's not a reason to subscribe to YouTube, I don't know what is. I do know that TSA makes me check them now. But this is the other thing I noticed. Again, if you're on YouTube, you can see this. You can't see it as well if you're only listening. But if you look up here, YouTubers, I've got a few wild hairs poking through on the top of my head. Other than that, I'm bald. Bald, 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 bald. But these hairs, they're like the last survivors on a lonely planet, just trying to make it through the day. Good luck, fellas. Good luck. There actually was a story in the news the other day about Rogaine. Now, I used to spend a lot of money on Rogaine, a lot of money, and I'm going to tell you more about it in the show, which is coming up in just a second. Before we get to the Mike Quigley interview. All right, so here's the deal. Quigley's coming up, but before we get to that, thank you, Woody Buick and Woody GMC in Naperville and Gurnee. Google Woody Buick, Naperville, Gurnee. I mean, listen, they're the best. Well, I'll let Woody tell you. Woody?
Woody here, Woody Buick GMC, Naperville and Gurnee, Chicagoland's largest selection of GMC Sierras, Yukons, and Acadias. Search Woody Buick GMC, Naperville, Gurnee, and see for yourself. Hope to see you soon, Woody. GMC, we're professional grade.
I've known Woody a long time, and I just feel like he has more to say. Do you?
Woody here, Woody Buick GMC, Naperville and Gurnee, Chicagoland's largest selection of the hot new Buick, Envista, and Encore GX. Search Woody Buick GMC, Naperville and Gurnee, and see for yourself. Hope to see you soon, Woody. Buick, exceptional by design.
All right, let's start the show. This is a new episode, brand new episode of a show that we call Live from My Office. Here we go. So where else can you find this Steve Cochran guy, huh? Substack. Check out my Substack. The reason I'm promoting Substack more today is simple. I had a bizarre dream. You have weird dreams all the time. Anything in your subconscious can end up showing up in your head, and it looks like a Fellini film, a bizarre movie. So I had this dream about a game show called American Jeopardy, and it was three contestants. It was Trump. It was Speaker of the House Mike Johnson, and Chuck Schumer. It was those three contestants. It was hosted by the ghost of Abraham Lincoln. Now, I happen to have the transcript of that dream on Substack right now. So if you go to stevecochran.substack.com, you can read about my dream. American Jeopardy. Seems almost too true. Thanks for being here. You can subscribe on YouTube. You can subscribe on Spotify, on Apple, wherever you get your podcasts, on your dental work. Oh, and by the way, we still also give away these app gift cards. The good people at App sent me, I don't know, 400,000 of these. And the app gift card, let me get it on camera for you. The app gift card is $50. $50 to spend at App any way you want. So we usually do a phrase of pay. So here's what I'll do. If you send me the following phrase to thecochranshow@gmail.com, and don't forget to put your actual mailing list in, not your email, but your mailing, not your list, your mailing address, then I can send you the card. Otherwise, I don't know where you live. So send it to thecochranshow@gmail.com with this phrase that pays. Mother Nature, why do you hate us? I know, look, in my case, I live in Chicago. I shouldn't be surprised that it's cold. But I am. Every year, I'm surprised. Mother Nature, why do you hate us? Send me that at thecochranshow@gmail.com. I'll send you a $50 gift card to Apt Electronics. Anything else I need to mention to you? I don't think so. So coming up now, Congressman Mike Quigley. He's running for mayor of Chicago. That's big news. But he also is one of the few voices in Congress that actually tries to work with both sides. How crazy. Hope you like this, because I like him. Now, on Live from My Office. And the out. This is Live from My Office, and always glad to welcome Illinois Congressman Mike Quigley to the program. Sir, how are you?
I'm great. Good to be back. Happy New Year, everyone.
And nice to talk to you again. Aside from getting a little bit of time to play hockey, what are you doing when you're not doing DC?
Yeah, when I'm not doing DC, we are all over the district with everything that's going on, crisscrossing the district and the city, talking about the issues that matter. If you're talking about free time, there's almost none, but I have a lovely wife and two
Yes, you
friendly
do.
dogs that take up any free time I have.
If anybody ever has a question about your ego, you told me a story at a lunch we had a few years ago, probably now, but I think it's a great story about you. You're out walking your dogs one morning in Chicago, and some people came up, and you thought, well, maybe I'm not dressed my best or want to talk about Congress. And what did they ask about?
Oh, well, we at the time had three dogs, and they asked me for my business card, and I handed in my congressional card, and they said, "Oh, we thought you were a dog walker,"
It's always
which
great to
at
have the
times
kids.
is less stressful and maybe an alternative if everything goes south. There's always dog walking, which is an honorable profession,
Yeah,
and
very much so.
dogs are more pleasant and appreciative and uh, sometimes forgiving than people.
Can you imagine if you could get the dogs to vote? There'd be
Yeah,
no issues.
sure.
No
It'd
issues.
be a rough day.
You got some pretty significant news about you and your future plans, which I want to get to. It's very important to all of us in Chicago and the greater area, but Chicago's a world city, so it's important to everybody. Before we talk about that, let's talk about the news that's going on right now, starting with one of your favorite topics and mine as well, the good people of Ukraine. I think you know more about Ukraine and where we stand than anybody else in Congress. So where are we?
Look, it's almost First World War stalemate. You see pictures of the First World War, the trench warfare that took place, that long stalemate, something akin to that. Uh, but it's a brutally cold winter in Ukraine. 90% of the strikes that Putin takes are on civilian targets or energy targets because they know it's cold and then, he's a war criminal. This is what he does. So you're seeing some small incremental movement on these lines by the Russians. Um, there's something like 10 to 1 or more Russians dying in this war, but Putin doesn't care. He treats his troops like cannon fodder, and that makes it very tough on Ukraine. So it is a war of attrition. It is a shame. The Ukrainians need our help now more than ever. It's as important as the same reasons we fought the Second World War. And, it can't go on forever. It's just, unfortunately, if we don't help Ukraine more, Putin could win a war of attrition. And
Uh,
the president's done nothing but treat these as equals and seems to forget the fact that Russia invaded Ukraine and not the other way around.
No, and no one should forget that. I mean, it's idiotic. We've talked about this before as well, but Chicago is roughly the same size as Kiev. And if one morning Wisconsin invaded Chicago, you would hope you'd get more support than we have shown. Now, people are going to go, we've given them millions and millions and hundreds of millions and billions of dollars. That money is not thrown at the Ukrainians with the hope that things will go well someday. It is an absolute linchpin to our own security. And while Trump is playing this Greenland fantasy, which has nothing to do with security, we have Ukraine spinning in the wind. Now, there are two questions related to that. The Zelensky family, lovely wife and kids of his own, does he get to see them much? Is he still moving every day?
I've met him. I've been to Ukraine 5 times since the war started, and the security around him is just understandably extraordinary. So um, it's always been in a different place. We were one time 50 miles from the Russian border, um, when we met. So, it's understandable that, he has threats from outside, but from within, it's something like Churchill during the Blitz is what I was reminded of. But this is a war that's now gone on as long as the Second World War, and it's one country holding back one of the largest armies in the world through sheer determination. I would say that our best military folks have expressed this war as it's not just a strategic and tactical imperative, it's a moral imperative.
Right.
Putin has his eyes well beyond Ukraine, clearly the Baltics and Poland. And it's not my imagination saying that. When I met with our European security leaders, including those in Poland, they said, we know if we're not fighting in Ukraine, we're fighting on Polish territory, something I tried to express to the community here in Chicago.
What is the will, if any, in Congress to do the right thing in regards to Ukraine, or are they just happy that Trump's not focused on it right now?
No, look, if there was a bill on the floor to give this do additional supplemental, it would pass. About half the Republicans voted for the last one. There's, Representatives Fitzpatrick and Bacon and McCall and French Hill, who are strong Republican advocates for Ukraine for the same reasons I am. Remember, this is the fundamental cornerstone of the Reagan doctrine,
Yep.
right? That we will help our allies against, at the time, Soviet aggression. This is the Reagan doctrine led by a president who's become an imperialist in our hemisphere and is still an isolationist in the areas where we actually need to help. And what's important is they've never asked us to put our own boots on the ground.
Right.
They're fighting our fight. It's their blood, and we're failing on the job.
And not that we should continue to have to justify the help that we're giving them, but the military armaments that are used in Ukraine that are sent there are made almost entirely in American factories, providing jobs and money in the circle of the economy here too. But moving on.
Look, and the conflict matters for another reason too, and that is we have seen a war that no one anticipated, right? The history of warfare is always generals fighting the last war. This isn't a tank warfare. The Russian Navy is hiding in the Black Sea on the east side from a country who doesn't have a navy. This is drones. This is cluster bombs. This is landmines. It is electronic warfare. It is a hybrid that we had better learn to adjust to. And by helping our allies, we also learn how to prepare for the next war, anticipating the fact that, our those in Beijing, those in North Korea, and others that see this and say the United States doesn't help its friends and allies. And I'm not sure we have any right now. And they say to themselves, things are ripe for picking. I think it makes the rest of the world and ourselves more vulnerable.
There's no question, and the developments as we move east back towards the United States, of course, include Greenland, because the greatest threat to America is the guy in the White House now, and you have to continue to watch him. We saw Europe finally stand up to Trump in various forms. We've seen some movement amongst the Republicans to stand up to Trump as well because of the outrage of Greenland. It doesn't begin to touch on ICE and all the domestic issues we have. Are you sensing a change? Is there a change in the House, specifically in the House and the Senate? The Senate, which the Republican Senate is the most cowardly thing I've ever seen. Are you seeing
the House?
Are you seeing a change?
Yeah, you're seeing some cracks and fissures. Perhaps started by the Epstein files and their release with Green and now leaving. But you're seeing anybody who really stands up to Trump leaves, and probably out of necessity. But you're starting to see the cracks and fissures. You saw the House pass the extension of the tax breaks for healthcare, the ACA. So some of that, and obviously you're seeing differences on what took place in Minneapolis. You saw genuine concern with a president, talking about Colombia, Cuba, Greenland, right? And the Republicans know there's zero appetite for an additional conflict for our country. So especially it's confusing, deciding that the Western Hemisphere is where the great threat is. We had a huge armament and Navy sitting outside, before the Maduro snatching. It's just,
Right.
what are we preparing for here? And is this prelude to war? These are all things that, as you know from history, you get this into a confrontation, any spark can bring it to a higher level in the threat of war.
Well, you mentioned World War One. World War One started in the smallest way possible.
Yes. Well,
So,
look, we're mindful of that. To answer your question, I think the Republicans, the more reasonable half of them, get this.
and the Republicans in the Senate, I know the Senate's not your daily job, but the Republicans in the Senate, are they moving at all in a positive direction? Look, I'm sorry, we need to
Well, today
explain.
will be a today will be a good test for that, right? We passed the appropriation bills,
Right, right.
and we got to vote on them separately, including things like transportation and housing. But the ICE component of this is in DHS. We got to vote on that separately in the House, but it's tied together in the Senate. So the Democrats are unified to vote against it because it includes the ICE funding.
Right.
Um, will the Republicans find a way to break it up? Or we could even have another shutdown because of this. So today is the first day they're back after their snowstorm to give you a pretty good indication of whether or not they're willing to stand up to him on this one.
If they are truly offended by the fact that we had two people murdered by ICE agents in Minneapolis, how hard is it for the Senate president, or the leader of the Senate, I should say, to take the ICE funding out of the bill for the budget stuff separately and deal with that by way of negotiation?
Well, they can do whatever they want. He has that ability. I mean, the first thing to do is they've got to separate the vote on the separate bills. You know, we don't pass a budget, we pass appropriation bills.
Right.
So there are 12. There's a pack of them now. The first thing, to your point, is they should pull the Department of Homeland Security bill out from the others, pass the others. Then, how do you handle ICE in this situation? And that is, you could pull it out of here, you could amend it. I proposed an amendment last week to do just that, to amend the Department of Homeland Security and say that we won't fund ICE unless the indiscriminate use of tear gas is ended, warrantless searches is ended. They have to have body cams. They're going to have QR codes identifying markers on each person. And a lot of this is accountability. Bottom line is, I said, you can't fund ICE unless there are dramatic reforms. And I won't vote for it until there are dramatic reforms. Do I expect the Senate to do that? I mean, probably not. But I think that there is going to be a halt here, and there's got to be some canoeing of this. You know, you only need a few Republicans to stop this in the Senate.
And there's only a few that have been willing to stand up so far, but hopefully more will come, because the amount of time that's being wasted on the discussion of how poorly ICE does its job is time that should be spent on other things.
Absolutely. And look, ISIS has not left Chicago in its entirety. And I don't expect that it will, but it's going to come back, I would guess, in March or April when it's warmer here. And I would say in twice the form or four times the form. And we better watch out. We've got our work cut out for us. We'll be ready.
Speaking of Chicago, your city and mine, you announced that you were running for mayor, which I'm thrilled about because I'm such a fan of what you've done and tried to do in Congress and what you can do here, starting with your basic core principle that you got to work with both sides and you got to listen. Talk about that.
Look, Chicago is a city in crisis. It is also the city I've spent most of my life. I love the city, but for all its assets, its people, its cultural, its universities, its location. If it rolls, floats, and flies, it goes through Chicago. It's on the Great Lakes. It's exactly where you want to be when the crisis of climate change comes to full fruition. But all that, all those assets and all those possibilities are genuinely resting on a crumbling financial foundation. And we have to make tough choices. We have all the opportunities in the world to go in the next 100 years as the place to be. But we're going to have to come together and work out our financial problems.
Mayor Emanuel was the chief of staff for Barack Obama. He was a congressman as well, of course, had challenging jobs all over. He said there was no tougher job and no greater job than the mayor of Chicago job. You sound ready to go after it.
Absolutely, and I think he's right. It's such a dynamic city, and it is, as Mayor Emanuel said, an extraordinary challenge to govern. This this city isn't just often polarized. It's you have 5 or 6 different areas of polls, groups of people, and the challenge is reminding us and unifying and leading and recognizing that there is more that unites us than divides us. And what are our common concerns? One of the things I'll stress is if you stop anybody anywhere in the city and say, what are you worried about? What do you care about? And I will tell you, it's, can my kid walk to a good school safely? Will my spouse be able to walk home safely from the train or bus that operates safely and efficiently? How high are my taxes going to be? And are there going to be jobs and opportunities? The bottom line is this is a city that was at a financial crossroads a decade ago and didn't meet those challenges. So, I think you can grow this city out of its problems. You can't tax their way. From the decade you and I were born, the city's lost 1 million in population. We need to, as they say, build, baby, build. Currently, there are 3 cranes in Chicago, and one of them is the Obama Center. We're way short on housing. We're way short on economic opportunities, but those things working together, we can overcome.
Your reason for jumping in is not just a love of the city. You like the tough work, but I think, based on my discussions with you, you see this as problems that can be fixed. And yet we look at Illinois as, well, it's the Democrats versus the Republicans. We can't get the Republicans to go out and vote. How do you bridge that divide?
Look, I think you crisscross the city and listen to folks and talk about what those common areas are. There's in those discussions that I've had since I've lived in Chicago in 1982, are pretty common. But I think it takes the ability to listen and help people understand what they can do working together. Uh, and what we've seen is the politics of this city is one that's more likely to try to tear people apart. But I think the public is ready for it now. For those who love the city and want to stay here and grow, they recognize that uh, whatever it is that you want a city to provide, the basic services are still important: police, fire, streets and sanitation, quality schools. Yeah, it's hard to do all that when about 40% of your revenue every year goes to debt and pension,
Right.
right? So I think we need more shelters. I think we need more mental health facilities. There's a lot of things that the people across the city understand that we need. We need more police on the street. We need to put money into the improvement of our schools. But if 4 out of every $10 you're bringing in is going to debt and deficit, and every year that number grows higher, that percentage grows higher, it's hard to accomplish anybody's agenda.
No, you can't get anything done, and you have to take money from places that need the money that you've allocated to them previously to pay for the stuff you ought to be able to pay for.
Right. And I think the final note is all those tough choices we're going to have to make are compounded by what we have witnessed all too often. I think there have been 38 aldermen indicted and governors and others who have gone to jail. The real cost of corruption, which is important here, is the loss of the public's trust. People have to know it's not a rigged game. They have to know that when we make these tough choices, we're not doing it to benefit ourselves or our friends or our relatives. They have to know that this is for them and the greater good and the future of Chicago. So my attitude is, let's bring in the inspector generals, let's bring in the auditors, let's pass some transparency and ethics ordinance. So whatever it is we are doing, people can see it, understand it. There's nothing at all hidden from them, and that they know they're going to get a fair shake.
What's the best way to follow your campaign?
Um, for right now, my advice is watch the news. Follow
Okay.
everything, every which way you can on social media and the regular broadcasting, streaming, and so forth. We are anywhere and everywhere, and we
Well, you
look
can just
forward to seeing
yeah,
you across all those lines.
you can just Google Mike Quigley for mayor and go from there.
There you go.
Let me just tie it up by going back to DC for a second before I let you go. I want to personally thank you for the fights you've made for better mental health, for paying for better mental health, for the landmark bill you did to help ALS funding for people in that horrible situation. And yet we see Trump threatening to kill mental health funding. Why is that so important to you?
Well, look, I think that it's something that has been an issue that's been underserved for generations. It's fundamental, and I think most people recognize that. The Act for ALS bill that we passed with bipartisan support. The reason I think we got such broad-based support is my father passed from Parkinson's, complications from Parkinson's. So it's not ALS, but the neurodegenerative community. And I don't think anyone has not been touched one way or another through
Right.
friends, family, or themselves, came together to get that bill passed. And yesterday, I talked to my friends Brian and Sandra, who are the leading advocates for that. And they talked about how those different and new treatments are making a difference for them and everyone else. But the things that we are learning from the Act for ALS bill that we passed will help people with all of those neurodegenerative diseases in the future. It is a pivot, it's a game changer. And we talked about how frustrating it is to govern at this point in time. It was a rare moment that I was proud to help lead, where the House voted unanimously to do something significant. And there were hugs and tears on the floor because people were remembering lost ones. So I think it's just a symbol of what we can do when we recognize our common concerns.
Yeah, I'll let you go, but you sound more optimistic than maybe I'd even expect. And I like to hear that because we all need hope, and there's not a lot of optimism out there.
The challenge for someone in my position and to think about running for mayor is you've got to let people know just how tough the situation is, what the challenge is. Because if you sugarcoat it, you're really not going to make the toughest choices you have to for now, right? Uh, but you also have to show them out of the darkness comes a light. And that light is the people of Chicago, the strength, our resilience, and the fact that we've overcome things that are far, far, far worse. But I'm optimistic because it makes no sense to be pessimistic. I love my city. I love the people. I love my country. And we move forward. And just Google Friends of Mike Quigley, and you'll find out what we're up to.
Tell the truth about how tough it is, but believe it can all be fixed. I mean, there's your campaign slogan.
There you go.
You
You're a
know,
consultant.
a free one.
Yes,
Congress,
absolutely.
Congressman Quigley, I appreciate it. I know how busy your days are, and I thank you for coming on.
Thank you. Take care now.
Thank you, Congressman Quigley, or will we say Mayor Quigley sometime in the near future? I like that idea, though, that he's all about telling the truth about how tough the problems are, but having absolute belief that they can be fixed. That's a pretty good way to go. Thank you, Ross Cochran, for producing this, and this being Live from My Office. Of course, you can get anything but politics on the Live from My Office podcast network. So just go to Live from My Office. The Steve Cochran website, cochranshow.com, has all the episodes on. And people listening around the world, we thank you. App gift cards again. Get your app gift card by sending me the phrase that pays. Mother Nature, why do you hate us? Send it to thecochranshow@gmail.com. And don't forget to put your mailing address in there so I can actually send you the $50 gift card. I'm glad you're here and I'm glad you're listening, and I appreciate that very much. Final word goes to my friend Woody at Woody Buick GMC, sponsoring Live from my office in Naperville and Gurnee.
Woody here. Why Woody, you ask? Chicagoland's top-selling Buick GMC dealer with the largest Buick GMC inventory in stock. Over 1,000 of the hot new Buick and GMCs to choose from. Search Woody Buick GMC, Naperville and Gurnee, and see for yourself. Easy as 1, 2, 3. Click, shop, and drive home today. No shortage at Woody Buick GMC, Naperville and Gurnee. Woody needs your trade-in today. Hurry for best selection at year-end. Hope to see you soon, Woody. GMC, we are professional grade.
I drive a Woody car, and you should too. Go see Woody Buick and tell him we sent you, and we'll see you next time on Live from my office.